This is episode 327, and we're talking about how to create content that sells with Hyde. Welcome to the Content Queen podcast. I'm your host, Mariah, entrepreneur, storyteller, digital nomad, creative content bootcamp, and founder of Content Queen with over 10 years experience in marketing. This podcast is here to help you create the ideal content marketing strategy for you and your business by blending storytelling and strategy. So let's get into it. Hello, gang. How are we? Do you like my new sign? This is going to be the background of the Content Queen Shiro. If you are listening on Apple and you can't see the video, you can head over to YouTube and watch it. If you're on Spotify, you will see the video. But I think it looks so cute. I'm so excited to up-level the content of the pod. So today we have Sol. Now, Sol has a really interesting story. He quit his job in corporate. He was working in consultancy and strategy and all the things because he felt really unfulfilled. And he built his own online business from scratch. And he also started by just creating content. I can really relate to that story because I started my own content journey in 2017 when I started a travel blog. That turned into creating my own business. So I can totally relate to Sol's journey. But since then, he only really started 18 months ago. He has helped over 100 coaches, consultants, and agencies grow and scale their service-based businesses so that they can work when they want, with who they want, and build something that really fits their life. So we're going to talk about content and storytelling and strategy and selling, more importantly. So I think you're going to love this episode.
Amazing. So welcome to the Content Queen podcast. I'm super excited to have you on today. We've already had a bit of a chitty chat, so I know you're going to give heaps of value and be a great time. Can you just share a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
I can. My name is Sol, and I am currently in Romania with this lovely background behind me. But I am currently building what I call the Free Thinkers Club, and that is my consulting business. We take online businesses and we scale them using organic social media, trust-based marketing. I have an incredible community. I'm very proud of what I've built. We started it 18 months ago, and very excited for what's to come. So yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Amazing. So you just said 18 months ago. This is wild. So let's go there. How did you get started into business and being in your own business and obviously scaling something so quickly? Like, give us the rundown. What happened?
I appreciate that. Yeah, the story starts maybe like 2 years ago when I was like, I saw I was in the UK. I'm sure it's very much the same in Australia. Everyone gets put into this box of like, all right, I'm going to go to the good university. I'm going to go to the good job, and I'm going to get the thing to make the parents proud, the very traditional path. And I jumped on that wrong path. I was on that path thinking, okay, like this is going to be the thing that makes me happy. And I'm sure your listeners can relate to sort of feeling like you're trying to make someone else happy, trying to do the thing that society tells you. And then I went to Bali, which I'm sure a lot of people have been to or spent a bit of time in. My impression of Bali is slightly different to maybe some Australians' perception of Bali. Like you kind of like, I know it's slightly different. For us, it's like this place where all these digital nomads hang out. For you, I know there's like slight differences.
Yep.
But anyway, like I went to the side of Bali where I was like, I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to head down. I met all these people. And all these people that were there were living the exact opposite life to like the consulting world that I was going into, the corporate 9 to 5 world. And they were like, what I say is they were happy, healthy, rich, and free, which is they had this thing where they were all really like fulfilled, they're making great money, they were doing things on their own time. And I was like, I want this. I don't want the sitting in an office like obviously you on the van life know exactly the same thing. Like I wanted the freedom, I wanted to go where I wanted to be. And I realized that I was on the complete wrong path. So to bring you back to, or bring myself back to the question you asked, is I got started by seeing these people, realizing that the secret to these people's lives and why they were living such a cool life was content creation. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to start making content. So I started picking up my phone and I was like, I'm going to make content about Apple Watches, about my Whoop watch, about mental health, about all these random topics, about like the coffees I was drinking, about doing sleep tests. I was like, I'm just going to go and make content. And then fast forward to like maybe 20 months ago, someone asked me, you look really good at content, by the way. I could do with some help. Would you mind if I pay you for a few sessions for help with content? And that is pretty much how this whole business started. And I guess 150 clients later, retreats around the world, a team of about 12 people right now. It's going as well as I could have ever imagined, but it all started with picking up the camera and just putting up my phone and just posting.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's amazing. I feel like you probably got whiplash from like how fast it all came to life.
Yeah, I honestly I struggle to keep up with it like identity wise because it just is moving at such a pace and you go from being a person in your parents' house that's wondering. So I quit that job that I was signed up for and
Mm.
I went back to my parents' house and I built from there from like 20 months ago to 18 months ago. And I remember just like turning around the other day and there was a group that was 27 people who had flown across the world to watch me in an event. And I was just like, I don't feel any different from that person who was like in my parents' house when my like parents were looking into my room being like, is this gonna work? Like, is this so
Yeah.
yeah, it's a pretty crazy transformation, but um I just had so much conviction that it was gonna work that I was like,
Yeah.
I just need to go out and do it. And I'm very grateful for where it's led me.
Yeah. So what, like, I'm curious to know, what would you say was that sort of like, I mean, obviously there was a content element, but what was it that made it grow so quickly? Like, have you had time to reflect on that?
Yeah, such a good question. I think when you're growing a business, it's the most stressful, complicated. I'm sure your listeners can relate to this. Like it's the hardest, most it's probably the biggest personal challenge you have, or one of
Mm,
the biggest personal challenges you have. And the thing that I've always been very lucky to have is that slight arrogance is probably doing myself a bit of a like a disservice, but let's say like I have absolute conviction in anything that I
mm,
do. And from growing up, I used to play very serious rugby. I used to do public speaking, and I had responsibilities as a kid in school, being like school captain and stuff like that. And all of those things put together meant that when I started my business, I was like, I am going to do well at this. Like in my head, I was like, I don't do things badly. And
mm-hmm.
that conviction sounds almost quite woo-woo to your listeners to say, okay,
No, I
well,
get it.
you just need to believe in yourself. Like it's like everyone says that, right? But what believing in myself did is it played out in what happened. So, for example, I hosted a mastermind within 2 months of starting my business, and you're probably thinking like, yeah, hosting a mastermind within 2 months of like starting a business. What an arrogant person to do that, right? But that's because I was like, well, I feel like I'm really good at what I do. So I feel like if I can get people into the room, 15 people showed up, a load of people converted into my full-time program, and I got loads of good like reputation and videos from it and all that sort of thing. And it was that conviction and
Mm,
that confidence that I knew it was going to work. A bit of delusional optimism, I think, is very healthy. And
mm,
that then plays out in the actions like convince like when someone gives you an objection on a sales call, you're like, oh, I do really believe this is actually the good thing for you because I have conviction that I am the right
hmm
person for you. And when someone asks you to speak at an event, or when a client is unsure about this and you're like, no, I promise you this is the right thing to do, then they get the result, and then it shows
mm,
you can show that off to other people. So
hmm
there's all these small little tactics, but I have to give the cliche answer, which is just being so painfully convinced that what I was going to do was going to work.
Yeah.
That why not? And one very funny story is I've actually got a team member here, Ollie, who joined us a few months ago. And one of the reasons that he joined was that he started following me 18 months ago, 20 months ago, when I was in my parents' house and I was in London. And I was like, I hate my life. I'm in this corporate job. I hate it. And he's like, he's literally seen the conviction and the results
Mm,
from that. And he's like, of course I wanted to join the team because I've seen it in the flesh of how much it's grown. But it all comes back to the fact that I said to one of my friends about 2 years ago, I said to him in a pub, I was like, "Why don't I make $100,000 in a month?" He was like, "So you don't even have an offer, like you don't even have a business, you don't even have it. Like, what do you mean? Like, you
yeah.
literally, I had no substance to show. I couldn't even tell him in what mechanism I was going to do that." And he was like, he laughed me out of the pub, but I believed that that was going to happen. And then when it did happen, I was like, well, like, of
Mm,
course that makes sense. I knew that was going to happen. So
mm.
that's a long-winded way of me saying the most cliche answer, which is that I just knew that it was going to work.
No, but it's so funny that you say this because I had a theory like a couple months ago, and then I put this out onto a social media group, and I had so many guests come on the podcast to talk about my theory was, yes, you can be consistent in your content, but if you don't believe in the content, it doesn't matter, it's not going to land. Like, you could have a strategy, you could have a posting plan, on Mondays I do this, or da da da, whatever it is. But if you're just putting it out for the sake of it, you don't actually believe in what you're saying or believe that the content is good, it doesn't matter. It's not going to land. And I've seen this with
Yeah.
clients, and I had this theory and actually saw a marketer in real time have this play out where I followed her a really long time ago when she had quite a smaller audience, and I saw her like that level of, yeah, like as you're saying, conviction and confidence, and her business just like blew up. And it was like her social media did, and all these things just went like, gangbusters, because yes, you could see her confidence. And I even see it in myself. Like if I have I feel a little bit low in energy, that's when you get the emails, that's when you get like the things, and you're like, no, get out of this. Like I need to get out of this rut, because I know it's just going to, put me down into a spiral. So I mean, I totally resonate with that. And I've seen it with clients that really believe in me as a person. Like you do you, like you're the expert. They're the clients that get results. They're the ones that have the post, reach who they're meant to reach, or if it's not viral, it's, sales or whatever it is. But it's so funny. But I think it's like it's putting that into practice when we have those low moments often is the hardest part, right?
Yeah, that's such a powerful thing you say. And I think a lot of people might think that maybe you and I speaking like this with a lot of experience in content we're just born natural. It's like, no, I remember the first time that I posted and I put my phone in my drawer and I was like, I don't want anyone to see
Cringe.
this. I was
Yeah.
like, it's like the worst thing in the world, right? I think the difference between conviction and confidence is not actually the feeling, because everyone feels imposter syndrome and everyone feels scared to do the thing. But the difference is the people that go and do it anyway. And like the conviction and confidence, like comes from doing the thing over and over again. When I felt the imposter syndrome, I'm sure it's
Mm,
the same for you.
yeah.
And that is the only advice that I can give, is that I think a lot of people, maybe someone listening to this might be thinking, I just don't have that confidence. I don't have that conviction. And
Mm,
it's not about having it. It's about doing it anyway to then give you the conviction and the confidence. Because when we were a kid, the greatest example of this is like when you're a kid, you don't have the confidence to go and walk when you can't walk, but you just go and do it anyway. You try and try again. And now if I was to be like, by the way, like, how confident do you feel walking? You'd be like, what do you mean? Like, of course
mm,
of course I'm confident to walk.
yeah.
And it's because at one point you weren't confident to walk, but you just went and did it anyway. And then you got that confidence. And I know it's a stupid example, but it's such a good example of like
Yeah.
the content game and the business game, which is the people who have the conviction are the people that leaned into the imposter syndrome, do it anyway. And
Mm.
that builds that stack of conviction and confidence in your content.
Yeah, I mean, I resonate with the walking thing because I had a major surgery in 2021, and actually like getting out of bed
Cool.
to walk was the hardest thing I did that day. And it gave me so much anxiety that I fainted in the shower, sitting down in the shower while the nurse was showering me, because the thought of standing up and walking gave me so much anxiety. So like even those things read, and I couldn't believe it's like you ran a business. I had run a business at the time. You ran a business, you've done all these hard things in your life, and the hardest thing is standing up. So like, and I mean, I totally resonate with the content thing. I mean, my first ever live on Instagram, I remember like living in my share house in Melbourne, and my housemate was like, do your live. You said you wanted to go live. And I'm like, I don't know. And I like hit the live and it's like shaking, and I just talked like nonsense. Like none of it made any sense. So like we all had to learn from somewhere. But I think a lot of the times you use the evidence, like you saying with being good in rugby and having school achievements, you use that as evidence as to why you could do it in another area of your life. So it's like, why can't you just pull from the expertise you have in other places? And that's what happens with a lot of like whether they're like practitioners or small business owners that are really good at what they do, but like marketing, they go like, oh, I don't know how to market. I can't do the marketing thing. But it's like, but you really know and you're really confident in your expertise. You just got to kind of try and translate that into your content.
Absolutely. And that's why successful people are so good at doing new things, and just they have this like
Mm.
life momentum around them. I've got a client who's a YouTube coach. He's pretty much the Ukrainian Mr. Beast. He got
Oh,
10
that's
million
so cool.
subscribers, and it's so cool. He helps people with YouTube. And he joined my program and he couldn't even speak English, but he was so good at YouTube. And I saw how he went about learning English. And
Mm.
it was like he approached learning English like a successful person. He was like, well, I'm just going to do 5 hours a day, 5 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I'm going to immerse myself in it. And I'm going to like, and I just saw how he did that. But that's because he had stacked the confidence in the past. And it's such a good point, which is people think they need to be good at the next thing, which is actually just like you just need to use what you have and what you've already done, like learning to walk. to remind yourself that you were awful at doing some things in the past. Now you're very good at it. And
Yeah.
that's the same with marketing. And it's such a nice frame to know, because then you get this point where you're like, when something feels really hard, you're like, oh, I've done this before. I know what this feels like. I suck at this right now, but I'm going to be very good at it in a year's time. And that's there's nothing more like that than content, which is, I'm sure you and I both agree, and anyone listening, is like the first video is the hardest, and then it gets easier and easier, and then all of a sudden you're just spitting into a phone, and you're like, this is the easiest thing in the world.
And you're telling things to randoms on the internet that you go, do people actually care about this? I don't know, but I'm going to post it anyway, because you just don't know who will care. I had this conversation literally before I got in my bus and traveled to here to have this conversation with you, of a woman that owns a Pilates studio. And she was like, I posted this video of me dancing, and it was like learning a TikTok dance. And it's like, this is for the girl in year 9 that was told, she looks like an idiot, or she looks silly. And she's like, I just did it to my stories. And like so many people responded. I said, imagine if you put that in a reel, like imagine what people would say there. So I think it's a really good reminder for us all that, and I think what ends up happening with a lot of business owners is we have that mindset of like, well, I don't know how to market. I'm not very good at it. I'm good at what I do, but I'm not good at marketing it. I don't have the time to do it. Or they do it and then they don't see the results straight away, so they give up on it, which I'm sure you've noticed with your clients as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. But that's the thing, and that's why someone just told me, if you post every day for a year, your life will change. And I was like, I believe that, and I'm going to do it. And that's what happened. And
Wow.
and whether
Your
that's your
story
business,
shows
whether
that.
that's you, whatever, then yeah. So
Yeah.
that consistency is there, and that confidence. Yeah, couldn't agree
Yeah,
more.
amazing. So one of the things that you speak about a lot is, this kind of conversion with our content. So yes, there might be people that I know there's two types of business owners. There's one that's really good at the top of funnel, like posting about like random stuff and like getting the likes and maybe the engagement, but then they're like, oh, well, social media, I'm not actually selling on there. Or there's the people that like throw up a mock-up of their program, or throw up like a video of like, hey, I'm doing this, like join it. And they're like, well, that doesn't work either. So they either do too much selling and then they like kind of block out their audience, or there's people that don't do enough. So in your experience of working with content as like a conversion part of the marketing funnel, like what advice can you have for us where we're like, okay, we're either one or the other. How can we create content that actually converts?
Yeah, I love that. So it's fascinating, because recently the majority of clients that have come to me have been people with like maybe 10,000 to 100,000 to sometimes 1 million followers, and they just can't seem to make money. And that's why, like, I feel very, very passionately about this subject and how important it is to actually get people out of your audience, because otherwise you're just like, you become an influencer. And at the end of the day, like most people listening to this, like you don't want to be an influencer. You want to get, money in the bank account, sales calls booked in, all of that sort of thing, help clients.
Yeah.
So I agree completely. The biggest problem that people have when they try and get hand raisers is, I think the first thing is that they don't actually like let me actually talk about the phrase hand raisers first, because that's the way that the way that I think about social media is, firstly, you generate traffic. So if someone's got a load of like views, the top of funnel, that's the traffic part. The second bit is the trust part. So you have to create content that gets people to build trust. And that's about showing your values and showing the things you can do. And then the next part is the conversion part, which is exactly what you talk about. And the way I think about that is, these people, if you're listening to this right now and you're like, okay, how do I get people out my audience? Well, I would think about your social media as an ecosystem, and everyone in that ecosystem, you need to give them the opportunity to leave that ecosystem to enter your sales cycle. And no matter what you say, if anyone's a business owner, they have a sales cycle. I know that word is almost demonized, but you obviously do have a sales cycle if you're looking to bring clients in, right? And so what I think about is this idea of like, how do we get people from the ecosystem, so the views, the people who are watching your top of funnel, to your sales cycle? And that is what I call hand raisers. So you have to give people the opportunity, who are in your ecosystem, who are going around day to day, they watch a few of your reels every now and then, maybe watch a YouTube video, see a LinkedIn post. What is going to get them to raise their hand? And that is where we create a kind of spectrum, which is all the way from one end of the spectrum, saying, going and selling on your stories, all the way to giving people the opportunity to say that they're interested in you a bit more than just watching your content. So to break that down, the first thing that I found, which was fascinating, which is we did record months in like October, November, and we had a bit of a slower period in like January, February, not helped by Instagram causing us some problems. But I asked my head of sales, like, what do you think happened in those months? And we just sold 3 times less than we did in October and November. I asked people to buy from us 3 times less. So
Mm-hmm.
the first thing to say with this whole thing and how to get people to actually buy from you is to ask in your content to say to people that, look, like I do this thing, there's no pressure at all. But if you are interested in joining or working with me or using my service or buying my product, like please just like send me this message or book this link or just do something like that. So that's the asking part. And then the other part is giving the hand raisers to saying, do you want a bit of free, like, do you want a lead magnet? Would you want something which would help you solve a specific problem? And all of those things are going to get people to raise their hand and to say, I am interested in you a bit more than what you're currently showing me with content. I would like personalized guidance. So I would just get anyone listening to this to think about how can you get people to raise their hand to say, I've watched your content for a bit, I see the value, but actually what I want to do is explore working with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think it's definitely that balance of underselling and overselling, right? But you're right, I think, and I had this conversation with a client today. I said she's got two kind of brands, and one is product based and one is service sort of coaching. And I said the product based, obviously, we do want to share your products, but we need to give sort of a little bit more value and education around it. But your service based, people just want to know how to work with you. And I just don't think you're telling them enough how to. Like, I don't think they care how. They just want to know, like, they're there and they're engaged. So, like, we just need to tell them more. And it is quite as simple as that. I think often we probably
Mm,
complicate it. When you're
yeah.
looking at sales strategy, especially on social media, are you using like a particular intent with your posting? Like, are you using, say, I had a entrepreneur explain Instagram in a funnel. Like, are you using more of your stories to sell, or is it a combination of all of the different types of posts that you're doing? You're just in that habit of, if whether you're giving value, whatever you're doing, you're always giving people an option of what is the next step.
Yeah, Instagram stories are an absolute cheat code, which is why I think everyone who is marketing is moving towards Instagram stories. Because
Mm,
the incredible thing about Instagram stories is that they show your stories to your most engaged followers. So you're almost like bottom 10% of your funnel. So like if someone just follows me for the first time, they don't get shown my stories. But if someone's messaging me all the time in the DMs, if someone's liking all my photos, then Instagram goes, okay, you want to see this person's life in more of a like personal way. So we're going to show them your stories. And the great thing about marketing is that we can use that like method to find our most engaged followers. I love Instagram stories for that reason, because it's basically Instagram showing me a list of these are your most engaged followers in the last like 5 days. So
mm,
you can see who they are. So we've had multiple times where we've just messaged someone who's been watching my stories and said, oh, by the way, thanks so much for the support. What like what's made you keep watching the stories, or are you enjoying it? And they go, oh, by the way, thanks so much for messaging me. Where's the payment link for me to join your course? Sort of thing. And it's like, and that's the cool thing about the stories is it's the bottom funnel. It's very hard to like find out where those people are. So for
mm,
me, it's predominantly Instagram stories. And then we also give people the opportunity to have a conversation with us. So we're always reaching out to new followers.
mm,
And in as a percentage of the clients we bring in for my coaching and consulting program, about 70% are coming through either us reaching out to them as new followers or reaching out to them like via some sort of story that we put up.
mm.
So that's the source really, that the Instagram stories work the best. We're doing a few more retargeting ads with like sending to people to a landing page. That's a real trial right now. But the
Mhm.
most simple strategy to make money from your Instagram is post a load of content, reach out to people who are interacting with it and ask what their problems are and see if you can solve them.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I literally did a podcast interview yesterday as we were recording this, all about Instagram DMs with a woman that teaches Instagram like DMing. So it's actually a good call out. And I know there's a few people that listen to this podcast that I told them about that podcast, and they're gonna go, this is a pattern. Maybe I should start doing it, because I think there is and I mean the head of Instagram come out and said, we're focusing more on messaging this year. I mean, he also set brackets that if you message people it doesn't mean they're going to see your content, which I think that's a bit of BS. I think he's just trying to like stop us from like spamming too much, the old DMs that you get in your requests. But it's very interesting that they are prioritizing that connection. But it's the same thing. Like you can post a heap of content, you can also leave the platform and expect results that aren't going to happen, especially when there's a call to action on Instagram, for example, as a platform, or even TikTok. Check out a link in bio or DM me a keyword. Not everyone's doing that, or comment a keyword. To go to your bio and then click through is like a whole extra step. In your stories, you can link people directly to it. In your DMs, people are asking for links. So I think there's a missed opportunity here that we all need to start focusing on a little bit
Absolutely.
more.
Especially as people are putting so much hard work into their content. But
Mm,
I think the interesting thing that you mentioned, the question you asked was like, how do you make conversion content? Well, it's like a lot of the time you're actually making the conversion content. You're just not giving people the chance to actually like take the next step. And that
yeah.
was the thing, is like it's just crazy, some of these examples where we've seen like us just sending one message to someone and then just going, "Oh, thank you so much for messaging. I really needed this message. I'm ready to get going. Let's get going," sort of thing. And it's like
Yeah.
that part is fascinating. So a lot of the time people just literally they're one message away from a deal that can change their whole month's earnings and revenue and all that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think that's the thing. And then I think just the bringing it up the funnel a little bit more, because you're asking a bit more about conversion content. I also
Mm,
think the selling stuff is important, but the other thing that people often fail to do is to give all their secrets away on social media, to make it the people just want the implementation. That you
mm,
give the information away for free and sell the implementation. And the other thing is like, if you do not give your best stuff away in your content, then what happens is people just believe that you don't know what you're talking about, and they're never going to work with you in the first place. But the thing that people want is to jump on a call with you or one of us two and get the personalized advice. So
mm.
if your content is not converting and you're getting loads of views, you're either probably not asking enough for people to raise their hand, or you're not creating enough information and valuable content. And a great example of this is my best performing video, which has made me the most money off YouTube, is an example of a video where I explain everything that I teach people inside my
Mm.
program.
Yeah.
So it's like you could watch that video and you could save yourself multiple five figures in program fees by just watching the video. But at the end of the day, information is everywhere, and everyone can just get a
Exactly.
Claude agent to go and do the stuff for, or like to teach them the stuff for them.
Yeah.
The real thing is be able to sit there and have personalized guidance. And that's the beauty of this space, is just go. And like, I'm right now writing a 10-hour course, which I'm going to put for free on YouTube. And I know that that is going to make me, or bring me, the most amount of attention, because people are going to watch that and then go, can't be bothered to watch 10 hours. So just tell me the next thing that
Yeah.
I need to
Just do
do.
it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's so true. And I mean, that's why service providers are busier than ever, even with AI. Like, I think, yeah, cool. It's also a level of like that trust, right? Like we spoke about before. It's like, yeah, okay, I can have a lot of confidence, but there's also a lot of confidence in having experts give me more confidence. And I think it's that and probably some of the feedback you could even like any testimonial you ever look at from a client, it'll always talk about a level of support and guidance that you give. And like that's what they pay for, right? They pay for that guidance, that reassurance, whether it's coaching. I mean, obviously, implementation of actually creating the content is a different thing because you're delivering that result. But like if you have a coach that is giving you that accountability and that connection and that reassurance, like that's what we always look for. We're human, like we thrive off human connection. Like that's what you end up paying for. If a coach gives you like every single secret in their YouTube, they're still not helping you, as you said, with that implementation or that guidance or that reassurance for your business. Because I imagine there's like hundreds and hundreds of examples that you can give of strategies that have worked for your clients. But there could be one piece of information that that small business owner needed that you didn't give in those examples. And I think that's where like people on Instagram and all the things saying you should do this, you should do that. Like, yeah, that's all well and good, but it might not work for someone else's business. So it's a really good
Absolutely.
point and a really good reminder for us that giving away all your secrets on social media or through podcasting or through whatever content you do is not what, like some people have that mindset of like, oh, that's costing me money. Like people aren't going to buy from me if I just give it all away for free.
Yeah. It's the best thing you can ever do. Like it's always a good reminder to do it. But yeah, we can literally see the best performing YouTube videos that bring
Mm,
us in clients. So I can literally see statistically that what you just said makes
yeah.
sense and works.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think there's a lot of limiting beliefs that come out around like being on social media and creating content, and I love the point that you raise around like if you're not asking people to do the thing that you want them to do, you just become an influencer. And funnily enough, a lot of influencers are now becoming brand owners. Because obviously they either become, and I talked about this the other day, and I'd be keen to hear your take on it. It's like if you're a business owner, if you're an influencer, you either become a walking brand. So I mean, in Australia, we don't get paid for making content unless it's YouTube, like TikTok don't give any money for creation. You either become a walking brand or you start a brand and then the marketing shifts. And that's interesting what you said about like, clients you've got that have got millions of followers, but they're not converting them. Just because you have all these followers doesn't mean the money translates. And that's one thing that you did mention is like you can make money with a small amount of follower base. So I'm keen for you to share a little bit more about your experience with this and also like, yeah, how you've worked with these big influencers that have loads of followers but just aren't making the conversion.
It's fascinating, and I've got a really good friend of mine who's also a client, and he won't mind me saying, but he's a market leading PT in terms of his followers. He's got 400,000 followers, and we started working together, and he was like didn't really know where the next kind of client was coming from. Yeah, I've got one client who's got 3,000 followers and is making like I don't know how specifically you want me to talk numbers, but let's say he's
Go
making
for it.
multi five figures. Another
Yeah.
one of my clients made over six figures with 4,000 followers. What
Yeah.
I'm trying to say is that followers don't matter anymore. It's not
Mm,
about followers, it's about the quality of the audience that you've built.
mm,
And that's why I always talk about, instead of saying, a lot of people just say, like, you have to get traffic, you have to convert people, and you have to sell people. Whereas I talk about traffic, trust, conversion, and sales, because most people miss out on the trust part. And the trust part, I always talk about that. And that's basically how you can make money from a small audience, is because it's better to have trust with a little bit of traffic than a ton of traffic with absolutely no trust. And
mm,
a low amount of trust basically comes from the fact that people see you as a commodity as opposed to people seeing you as a person. And that is the thing. The reason that these influencers can, someone like Kylie Jenner can go and make a stupid amount of money off her brand is because people really trust her. She's got like a fan base. Whereas this
mm,
PT who came to me was just making viral recipe videos and wasn't really building any sort of like authority and personality and belief, relatability, authenticity. And then all we did is we literally said, okay, mate, I want you to stop making these recipe videos because I call him like, he had like a drug addiction and his drug addiction was
yeah.
going
The
viral. Like,
dopamine.
yeah,
Yeah.
he was like, I know that I can make a viral video whenever I want. I was like, I don't want you to do that. Stop doing that. Please do that. And he was like, okay, fine. I was like, I want you to only ever make a video that includes your personality, the things that you're talking about, and the way that you convey yourself, be authentic and tell your story.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, he's got all these people being like, I love your journey, I love your story, paying him multi four figures for his PT business. He's
Mm,
doing really well. And it's all because of that slight change of strategy. So
mm,
the biggest thing that, to answer your question, the biggest thing that I see is it doesn't matter what number of followers you have. It really matters about the quantity and the quality of, or it really matters about the quality of those followers. And
mm,
with that has just been, I've seen that time and time again. I only have 20,000 followers on Instagram, but we're doing six-figure months. And that's because of the fact that I know that the quality of every single person that comes in is following me for me, following me because they understand me and they trust me. And that is obviously, as a business owner, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you want that, as opposed to be able to say to your friends you got 2 million followers, but be wondering if you got, how you're going to afford the next holiday. That's probably a worse way around to have it, right?
yeah, I mean, you can never judge an earning capacity based on followers, that's for sure, because it's just like it's just not how it works. And also, we're building communities outside of social media as well, like going to events or whatever other things we do in our marketing. But I think it's just one of those mindset shifts that is changing. I mean, I remember Gary Vee saying like a couple of years ago, like, I mean, on TikTok, I don't follow anyone. But I see all the same content, right? Like I see people that I love to consume their content, and every now and then I go, I probably should follow them because like I really like their stuff. I keep seeing it on my For You page, but I'm not actually following them. I just really like it. So even people that aren't following you can still, I've definitely bought from people that I do not follow, and especially on TikTok. Like my mineral foundation that I got like last year, don't follow it. Just like loved it. Love that idea. In the cart you go. Like it's actually insane to watch your own buyer behavior as well as you're sort of consuming content and what you like. And I mean, Instagram's algorithm is starting to play into the same as TikTok. I mean, you can see people come up on your Reels page that you don't follow, or and you consistently see their content, you still don't follow them. So it is interesting how the shift is really happening with the mindset belief around followers. But I mean, it's always the dopamine hit of engagement and likes and viral videos. Like I think that's really funny because that would happen a lot to business owners that are like, I had a client, we had one video reach 8.1 million people, and we were like, she's like, let's do that again. And I was like, it doesn't always mean that it's going to be. I think like there's reasons why it went viral, and I know why it went viral. But the stuff that is now resonating is actually carousels of really insightful information that is translating into people signing up to their app. So it's like just because we did this viral video that probably triggered people as well, because there's heaps of hate comments in there, like filtered through all those. It's like it's also the the actual valuable stuff that we're now seeing is resonating, and it's a carousel. It's not even a video or a reel. Like it's super interesting how much the how people consume content and what actually makes like good content now, as opposed to I guess 2020 2021 when we all thought, like I still go to workshops where people say to me, I'm not doing TikTok, I don't want to dance. Like it actually blows my mind that people still say that. I'm like, what do you mean?
Crazy.
Get on TikTok and
Yeah.
actually see what it's about.
They're just missing such an opportunity, but it's great because it means that there's more for all of us to
Yeah.
be promoting. So yeah, no, but no, it's true. It's the it is the biggest opportunity right now. Never have you been never in human history have you ever been able to market to people for free
Mm.
like social media.
Yeah,
Like
that's right.
we get to have random people on the internet who are interested in our stuff, or random people in your local area who are interested in your stuff. You don't have to pay for adverts. You don't have to pay for billboards. You don't have to pay for TV, for newspaper adverts, whatever it is. You literally just get to pick up your phone and talk about your own life and talk about the things that you believe in. And people will be like, I think I want to pay that person a lot of money to help me. And isn't that the coolest thing in the world?
Yeah, it is pretty cool. And I love that mindset shift because I think we it's just always that like, oh, I hate social media. But like I think it is such a great opportunity to be able to, I mean, if you think how much a billboard would cost, right? Like to have a billboard. I mean, I know I have a client that has a billboard and we help them with the design for it. So they're expensive,
Yeah,
So imagine like you don't have to do that anymore. And it's interesting one thing that you spoke about with that client that you mentioned where, they're posting the viral videos that were recipes and then he sort of changed. You sort of alluded to the fact of like storytelling. How much does storytelling play a part in your content and what you teach your clients and selling as well?
absolutely. Well, the thing is that what we put online is just regurgitated information, right? So like we can talk about the carousel strategy, and I completely agree with that. 1,000 other people have said that. We could talk about the fact that you should be posting on social media and it's the greatest opportunity. But but no, like that makes you a commodity because everyone else speaks about that, right? The difference is being able to tell your own story within the lens of the information you deliver. And throughout human time, we've always told things via story. We've delivered informations via stories. So a great example of this is like I have a copywriter who helps me with some of my carousels and my LinkedIn post. And we have seen about a 10x increase in the engagement on our posts. And the only simple change that we made was we deliver the same information. So we still talking about the things you should do with your offer, your content strategy. But instead of saying you should do this, we say, this is what I started with. This
Mm,
is the journey I had on this, and this is what I ended with. The information is still delivered in the information is delivered similarly. It's the exact same message. But instead of saying this is what you should do, you tell it through the lens of my own story. And we've had a 10x increase in interest. And that's because I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. We both
mm.
know this, but the beautiful thing about storytelling is no one can take that away from you. And the only content strategy that I'm using right now is that if my video could be on anyone else's page, then it doesn't belong on my page. So that's the only like that's the greatest bit of advice that I can give to anyone who's like plateauing is you need to create what I call one-of-one content. And that one-of-one content is only stuff you can say. And then using a story to tell that and using a story to deliver that frame is the best way to do that like method. Because of course, if I start telling people you should make carousels, they're gonna be like, all right. If I say, well, I've had a 10x increase in my engagement, and that's because I originally thought it was a bad idea, and then I went on this big mission with my copywriter, and it worked out. All of a sudden, that exact same thing is interesting, but I've delivered it in the same way. So yeah,
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. And the last thing to finish off the answer to that is, I have one video which has brought in probably a quarter of my revenue in total. So like we're talking like maybe $200,000 just off one singular reel. And that is specifically a video where I tell my story of leaving my corporate job, why I left my corporate job. I put some incredible Coldplay music in it, and it was very, took me a lot of time to make. And that
Well, at least you made money
single
from
reel,
it.
exactly right. And that single reel changed my entire life, like
Yeah.
my entire life. Everything has come off the back of that.
Mhm.
And it's all because instead of saying, you should leave your job, you should do this, I went and told a story about my life. And people went, okay, I like this person. I really resonate with what he talks about. So yeah, that to answer your question, it's very important.
Yeah, but you told it with a story. So what a great
There we go.
example. Absolutely love that. No, it's so true. I
There we
mean,
go.
every piece of like I remember we have a travel TikTok, and when we first started out, we were living in the back of the car, and we were in Queensland, and I know you've been to Queensland, but I don't know if you've been to Queensland when it rains, because when it rains in Queensland, it's like there is no coming back from the rain in Queensland. And we're at the library and it starts raining, and I start filming the rain because like it was like really raining. And then I turned to my partner Mitch and I'm like, because we had a tent where we stored like our electricity, like we charged things and our fridge and all those things. And I was like, oh my God, the tent is open. So I start filming and I like run out of the library, like rain, and I'm like, fuck Queensland. And then like we get in the car and I like film the process of like, is our tent going to be flooded? Are we going to have like absolute no power? Like what is going to be happening? And then we pull up and there's just like a beam of sun just on our tent, like clouds all around and just like this sun on the tent, and no rain. And like we get back and we zip it up, and then like 5 minutes later it just pours rain. And we put that on TikTok and like forgot about it. And then all of a sudden like all these followers and like comments stuff started coming in, and I was like, what the hell? It's because it's that beginning, middle, and end, right? It's like any movie that tells a story. It's like when you are putting together a piece of content, obviously I'm very mindful that not everything has to be super dramatic, because I think some people tell stories just to get the drama and they have no relatability to their business and it's just a bit random. I've done a podcast episode on that. But it's like taking people through that experience because they want to know what happens in the end. They want to know the result. And then they go, well, I want that experience. So it's like it's a perfect example of that beginning, middle, and end, and like sharing, the hero story and all the story formulas that we've ever heard. But I mean, they work. So like, why would we not do it?
There we go. There we go. And it's also fun because you just get to tell stuff about your life, and somehow that's the best performing thing you can do,
Yeah,
which is
It's,
great.
and
Like,
it's easy. I think we forget
yeah.
how easy storytelling is. It's just like we have in our head that has to be this like big, massive story. And like, I mean, I've had the life, I've had cancer, I've had the story that would, the story that it like is the story of business. Like I've had that, and it doesn't like it's not, you don't need that big story to like make it. I actually never used it in my business. I used it actually to create community and to have people that had the same operation as me, because it's not very common in my age. And like I've even got people in my WhatsApp chat now that have just had the same operation. Like I had it 5 years ago. I still have people that find my content and message me about it. But like even that big story, that's not what it's about. Like you don't need that huge like story to make it sexy or like interesting. Actually, a lot of the times the stories that perform the best are the relatable ones, or the ones where people could go like, oh, that feels like that's achievable for me too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I always say this to my clients because now I'm very fortunate to be able to travel around the world and have nice backgrounds and all that sort of
Yeah.
thing. But my best performing content was when I was living in my parents' house,
Yeah.
and I was just going from the fridge to the dining table to my bedroom, and it was like this like old house, and it wasn't very aesthetic.
Yeah.
And that was when I was just banging the most views possible because it was the most relatable, authentic stuff. So honestly, like I kind of like, it's a good reminder to myself as well that actually people don't want to see all this stupid like the flashy cars, and because it's not relatable. They want to see
No.
real people doing real things, and that's the sort of
Yeah.
people that they buy from.
Yeah, we see that enough of influencers doing that
Yeah,
and Kardashians. So we don't need it from everybody else. And it actually just makes you feel a little bit more inferior. And like we want to buy from people now that is relatable, that's for sure.
sure.
So amazing. Well, there is a lot to unpack in this and for a lot for people to think. And I think the thing that makes what you're saying so interesting and so easy is because like we can implement this. And you always have that mindset of like, what am I doing wrong? Like obviously there could be like tactical things and things that you share with clients when you do that one-on-one work. Like that's, obviously a different thing. And there's all these levers that we can pull. But like at the end of the day, it comes down to those foundations and that type of content that's going to work. And then we learn from that. And then people go, oh yeah, cool. All right, I need to optimize this or I need to do that. But I think a lot of the times we get so caught up in like the detail and we think like we're doing something wrong or we're not doing this right. But we're all being told like these are the things that work. And I think I mean, I say a lot of things to clients and then they just, oh yeah. And then there's some that say, oh yeah, let's do it. And like, it's hard. Like a lot of the times we need to hear things a gazillion times before we actually take action. So hopefully this is the
Absolutely.
gazillionth time for everyone listening and they do the thing.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. You're sleeping on the life that you want on the other side of social media success. It's the greatest opportunity that we all have, and that's why I create my vision boards, my dream boards, all those sort of things. Because when I go, oh, I've got to film that another video now, or I've got to do that tactic that I heard on that podcast the other day, I go, no, I want to do this thing and I want to achieve this thing, and that's the thing that I need to do, and that gives me endless motivation.
Yeah, and that's also good. Like coming back to your why. I had someone say
Mm.
on my podcast recently, why you started your business, not why you do what you do, because why you do what you do could be like a greater thing, right? You want to help people or whatever. But why did you start in business? Like, what do you want? Whether it's like the house, the holiday, the endless travel, because that's actually what helps you, not the why, like, oh, I just want to help people and I want to do this. And that's amazing. We all want to do that. But it's like, why do you want to be in business? Because you could do that working for someone else. So I love that. It's a really good reminder because it helps us be a little bit more intentional with what we're doing as well. And like, that motivation that we need, especially like in Australia, we're coming into winter. So the winter blues is going to start kicking in any minute.
Amen. Get the camera out and start recording with a nice fireplace behind you.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Sol, for sharing so much of your insight. How can people find you and like just see what you're up to? Because we're all curious about how you're
Sure.
using social media and your content.
Yeah, come as I said, I give all my secrets away for free. So come check me out on I think my Instagram's probably best. That's soul.hyde. And my YouTube is just Soul Hyde. So go check me out, and I've got loads of cool free stuff that everyone can go and implement into their own social strategy.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for giving all your secrets away on this podcast. I really appreciate the time. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. How did you find that episode? I really liked Sol's approach, really authentic. And I think it really is about getting out there and learning what works and what doesn't. And I loved that mindset piece that we talked about. I did not, to be honest, expect that to come from Sol. So it was really cool to dive into that. But thank you for joining us on the Content Queen podcast. Don't forget to share it with all your business and entrepreneurial friends. You can do this by sharing it with them. You can also leave a rate and review. You can share it to your Instagram stories and tag us at Content Queen Mariah. And if you do rate and review, it does really help me get guests on like Sol. He found me through the charts, reached out, wanted to join the show. We get so many pitches now, so it means that you are rating and reviewing. But if it hasn't been you and you love this and you're getting all this free value, please, it takes 2 seconds and it really means a lot to the duration of this show and being able to continue to show up and share my wisdom and the wisdom of others. And yeah, if there's any topics you want me to talk about in the future, any guests you want me to get on, reach out to me on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the places where you know that I am. And yeah, I will talk to you soon. Bye.